We call it Windy Ridge Boys Farm. Girls can come too, of course, but I'm passionate about giving boys back their stolen boyhood. I had a fantastic boyhood myself. I lived on a quarter-acre farm in Mount Eden, not the jail part, the house part, and every holidays my parents sent me off to stay on a farm, and that was my education. I stayed on 35 different farms, and I had absolutely fantastic boyhood. Now I realise that thousands of boys, there's about 50,000 within an hour of here, won't have anything like the experiences I had. So we want to give them back their stolen boyhood. With mud, fire, water, doing things boys love to do, or even think they know nothing about except what they've seen on the screen. So along with that is we boost their literacy skills, starting with conversation and moving up to teaching them how to read if they've got gaps there.
So what do you do with them here?
What do we do with them here? Well, we've listened to boys and see what boys like, and if you notice the signs coming down the track, one bored boy, plus mud, plus fire, plus water equals one happy chappy. We give them back things like that they can do. We have a parameter of, shall we say, safety and organisation, but we try to give them as much scope as possible for them to just be boys. Obviously, when we go further out in the bush, we have a much more rigid regime of supervision, but it's lovely just to see them mucking around and doing things.
These are all the things that you're not supposed to do.
That's right, exactly. Well, we've got a bit of a track record because we've done this since 1962, but only recently have we cottoned on to the huge need for boys to have their literacy restored, which has been stolen from them.
So are we letting our boys down in terms of the education that we're giving them today?
Oh, very much so. I like Mark Twain. I don't let school interfere with my education. And in my case, my education was out amongst people in real life. And a lot of parents that are homeschooling their children are amazed at how short a time it takes to get to the academics and how much scope there is for real education, real life, taking on responsibilities, challenges, disciplines, talking to people, all that sort of thing. In my book, that's real education.
What are we doing wrong?
We're doing very little right, actually. And the worst thing we're doing wrong is not teaching boys to read so they can read for themselves. I've got this expression, good teachers make themselves progressively unnecessary. In other words, our aim is for boys to become their own best teachers and to learn by inquiry, by experience, by interacting with other people.
It sounds like you're saying that the way the system works doesn't suit the way boys learn.
Well, you're right. See, girls cope better with sitting in a classroom situation, but for boys it's disastrous. And it really annoys me when I hear a boy described, oh, he's disruptive in class. And I say, well, I think it's your class that's disrupting his learning style. And so here we give them the freedom that they relish and thrive on. And we infiltrate it all with literacy.
It sounds like what you're saying is that our education system isn't teaching boys the way boys learn.
Well, I'm afraid so. After all, go right back to Shakespeare. And then the whining schoolboy with his satchel and shiny morning face creeping like snail unwillingly to school. Whereas I learned things outside of school every day. My parents were my best teachers and they taught me how to learn. And it's an important skill that anybody learns from day one.
So in many ways, the way that we're expecting our boys to learn to read is dead in the water before it starts.
Wasn't always like this. In the old days, I've got a copy of the books here, the progressive primers were used throughout New Zealand, and while they were in use, we were at the top of the OECD tables in levels of literacy and numeracy. There was a certain amount of rote learning and accountability for progress. It was checked and encouraged and measured.
What about the reading side of things? Because that's what you're doing here, which is in many ways revolutionary.
That's right. Well, in 1991, we had 42 boys at camp and we tested their reading using things like the BERT test and established their reading levels. And we were appalled at the low level of some of them. What surprised us was that their skills cut right across wealth and ethnicity. And so we got the 10 worst back, and they were so excited to find that it wasn't their fault they weren't learning. And they said, oh, forget about the mudslide, we want some more phonics. And so we threw phonics at them in a fun sort of environment way where the boys were comfortable, not made to feel stupid. And so in 1995 we held our first what we called reading adventure camp. We hired a camp at Titirangi, and since then we've had 73. And we've learned from the boys how best way to teach them and what they really like. And they can't help being boys. We haven't had any misbehaviour really, just boys being boys. Oh, the odd broken window. We describe our camps by the number of broken windows. The last camp was just a one-window camp. But we teach the boys how to fix it. And we just love seeing them being boys. So you can see this place is pretty ramshackly, but the boys are at home here. We have girls too, of course. I mustn't forget that. But for every girl who's had trouble learning under the system at school, there's around about 9 or 10 boys. My dream is to restore the level of literacy we enjoyed in the 1950s. It'd be quite simple. There's some steps need to be taken to achieve that. And I've written out a list of 15, which was in a submission I made to Parliament in 2000, when there was a strong move to look at the whole situation of literacy and what needed to be done about it. Tragically, very little has been implemented. It'll take a radical move. Some have described it as a conspiracy. In fact, some have described it as a feminist conspiracy to keep males illiterate. Not my words. But you see, I challenge every primary school principal. Can you guarantee no child leaves your school illiterate? Interesting enough, in England, they've restored phonics right back. And in actual fact, at the moment, the boys are moving ahead of the girls. Not that we want to compare them, but it illustrates the fact that boys aren't dumb, they just learn differently. And so I'm really pleased. Well, that's what I'd love to see here. I'd love to see phonics restored at grassroots level. As someone said to me, Graham, you can either light a candle or fight the darkness. Well, I've got evidence to fight the darkness, but I prefer to light a candle. Yes, it's my aim for this place to be like a model of what I term literacy centres. As one chap said to me, his children came to camp a lot at Arapahui. We need 24 of your outfits right through the country. As you can see, this is very basic. Wouldn't cost a lot to set up. And I've had inquiries from Nelson and Wellington already for people to set up similar outfits like this.
There's a lesson here not just for schools and teachers, but for parents as well.
Absolutely. We love to. I'm passionate about retraining parents. A lot of them don't listen to their children. I can tell you awful stories, about children whose parents didn't listen to them. My parents listened to me. Do you follow? They gave me tremendous freedom when I was growing up at Mount Eden there. And then when I said I was going to be a farmer, they just said, go for it. Other people thought I was mad, and I didn't think so. And so I was very, very privileged. And it's very important that people have given them freedom, to do what they're born for. And that's why I'm so passionate about the whole literacy thing, because it opens the key to so much.